бой не пойдешь?
It was Sunday. People were waiting for Father Alexander at liturgy, but he didn't arrive.
September.
9th of September. On the 5th of September, Father Alexander performed my wedding rites to Igor. We were the last pair to be married by Father Men. I decided to go to church to talk to Father Alexander, just to ask for a blessing.
Игорь остался дома, и я поехала. Приехала я туда, все нет отца и нет.
Igor stayed at home while I went there. Father didn't turn up, and everybody was worried. We couldn't understand what was going on. His brother Pavel and I tried to get him on the phone several times. We went to Pushkino and called him, trying to find out if something had happened. But we didn't get any response. Masha Tёmina and I decided to go to Father Men's house to find out why he hadn't come to perform the liturgy. We arrived there, knocked on the gate, and his mother-in-law came out of the house. We asked her what had happened to Father Alexander. She said that in the morning he'd set off to church to do liturgy.
On the 9th of September 1990, the priest, Alexander Men, was killed on his way to church. Somebody approached him from behind and struck his head with a sharp instrument. Father Men died from loss of blood close to his house.
He reached the gate, leaned on it, and collapsed. I shouted something. I don't remember myself. I said to Masha, "Go away, otherwise they'll kill us all." I couldn't believe it. It was like a nightmare. You know what it is like? You have a bad dream, and then you wake up, and everything turns out to be wonderful. It was as if I was dreaming. I'm short. I couldn't see anything because there were lots of people in front of me. I was trying to look over their shoulders, trying to get a glimpse of him, because I realized it was the last time I would see his face. During the service, I stood behind Maria, because it seemed she'd fall backwards. But I was wrong. She stood as still as a candle.
Тогда было довольно тревожное время, потому что
It was a pretty anxious time back then. Nationalism was all-pervasive, with one group of society trying to protect the old Soviet system, another group going in a different direction.
И то, что обошлось без гражданской войны, на самом деле, это все равно такое. Я считаю, что
I think it's a miracle that civil war didn't break out then in Russia. In 1990, the KGB ruled many spheres. There were two powers, the KGB and the Communist Party. But nowadays, I think only one power has remained. I think we reached this stage over the last 20 years. I cannot see any other power within our country that could compete with the Federal Security Service of Russia.
В какой-то степени с ФСБ могла конкурировать.
1990 was very eventful. A committee was set up to foster relations with religious organisations. Many churches were opened. And all of a sudden, such a tragic event occurred, the murder of Father Men. It was in stark contrast to the possibilities that arose for him and for the church as a whole. He arranged preaching and regular programs on TV. Initially, one TV channel allowed him 10 minutes of broadcasting on one condition, that he would not mention the word God, not even once.
Нет ничего случайного во Вселенной. И то, что мы задаемся вопросом о смысле жизни, о цели жизни, о назначении, это свидетельствует об удивительной тайне, которая присуща только человеку, об удивительном даре духовности.
И он сумел
He managed to raise eternal questions so elaborately that they realized that he was their worst ideological enemy. It was as if he slipped out of their hands, but they were persistent. We'll get him anyway. I think his murder was an act of revenge from those who maintained a contrary ideology. Only one program in the series had been broadcast. He was killed soon after, and the rest of the video recordings were demagnetized. 2 days later, all the recordings had disappeared from television. Journalists that had interviewed Father Alexander received calls, forbidding them from broadcasting the remaining interviews, threatening them with revenge, dropping hints. We know which school your children study at, which bus they travel on, etc. No criminal would do this. It's clear that this decision was made in the highest ranks of state power. It was made by people for whom Father Men was an enemy and who was standing in the way of them achieving their political aims.
Почему его не посадили? Потому что он был, во-первых, очень осторожен, да? Значит,
he was not imprisoned because, first of all, he was very careful.
Когда он как бы
several times he was very close to being arrested.
Был на грани посадки, потому что у него было.
Several people from his circle had already been sent to prison by that time.
Опять же, в этой же тюрьме рассказывали про то, как, но это было значительно позже. А до этого он вел очень.
Before these events, he led a very quiet life. But Bishop Filaret Bakhromiev claims that on the last occasion, Juvenali saved men from prison. He managed to protect him at the beginning of Perestroika in 1986.
И он его отстоял.
He wanted to start many projects, and some of them he did oversee. A charitable society at the hospital, the revival of the Russian Bible Society after it had been closed over 100 years ago, the publication of World of Bible magazine. He was taking on editorial staff there, as he was planning to continue performing his services and duties. Of course we were all worried because of the unstable situation and threats to staff. The sense of danger was always there. He realized that he was opposed not only to state power, but to some groups in church who thought that he preached in an improper way. He thought that one of the most important things was freedom. That's why his political priorities were decisive. One question remains unanswered. Was he a member of the dissident movement? The answer is no. He had his own path to follow. He could have been a politician, but decided that his way was preaching the gospel. When preaching the gospel, he was setting people free. Soviet power doesn't accept freedom. Even today, our state power is hardly tolerant of freedom. For many people, Christianity seemed to be a new ideology that came as a change or substitute for communism. I think then there were different groups within the Central Committee, the Communist Party at power and the KGB. For some of these groups, orthodoxy seemed to be an instrument for imposing a new ideology and their own positions. But they didn't need the Christianity preached by Father Men. They needed the kind of Christianity, a traditionalist national cult which suited everybody's needs, not one that meant serving God. I know from a reliable source that they still dislike Men in the KGB to this day and regard him as an enemy of our orthodoxy. That very orthodoxy organised by the KGB so that it would become a national ritualistic religion.
I
was watching the place where he usually received confession. Then there was someone else there, which, for me, was painful to observe. Suddenly I felt as if he had given me the sign of the cross over my head, and I still don't know if it was an illusion or not.